Thank you very much indeed for asking me here. I'm told that you all know who the speaker is before you agree to come. And so I'm very grateful, because my father was a very bad-tempered man, and he was very fond of us children, but he was very sharp-tempered, and he specialised in pretending he didn't understand children. And he was never late for anything. And for my 5th birthday, my mother had booked me to go and see Arthur Askey in a kids' pantomime in Torquay. Now, a few of you here are old enough to remember Arthur Askey, but lots of you aren't, and he was a northern comedian. And his specialist thing was to sing "Busy Little Bee, buzz, 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 what a silly bee." And my father had absolutely no interest in going to see a children's pantomime with us, but we were very late going, and the atmosphere you could cut, because he was never late for anything. And we parked right under the awning of the theatre, and he jumped out of the car and said to Mother, "Come on." And down we went, and an usherette tried to head us off. And he was dragging Mother, who was dragging me, who was dragging my sister, who was dragging my brother. And we gradually got down to the front of the theatre, and Arthur Askey was suspended on a wire singing "Busy Little Bee, buzz, 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 what a silly bee." And the old man then had to get in to the 5th row from the front, because Mother had the best seats for her little ewe lamb. And as he went through, he said to everybody, "Out of the way, out of the way." And all their seats went zonk, zonk, zonk. Mother was saying, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." And when we eventually got to our seats, Arthur Askey had stopped singing, and to our horror came to the front of the stage, and he said, "Excuse me, sir," he said, "can you tell me why you and your family are so late and make so much noise that you wreck the evening for everybody here?" Which is quite disarming when you're 5. And the old man leapt to his feet and said, "I'm not telling you, but if I'd known you were on, I'd have been a fucking sight later." So Arthur Askey shot up on his wire and started singing "Busy Little Bee" again. And the old man said, "I've heard enough of this rubbish." And out we went, and all the seats went zonk, 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 zonk. And my mother said, "These children may never get over what you've done to them today." But we thought it was pretty good. And when Arthur Askey produced his memoirs, I was pleased to see that the old man got a mention as the worst heckler he'd ever had in Torquay. But my interest in racing came when I was 11, and I was taken racing by the old man to Newton Abbot, which is a small jumping national hunt course. And the great thing about racing is still you can stand really close to the action. In most sports you're a long way back, and the old man parked by the last fence, and I was too small to see over it, and they came hurtling into the last fence, and I could hear them, the jockeys shouting, "Whack, whack, whack," and the leader somersaulted, and he brought down 2 other horses, and the first horse to fall finally struggled to its feet. The next 2 horses got up, 2 jockeys got up, but the other one, right under me, he was obviously dead, you know, and I was 11, this was pretty, I peered over, and very, very slowly he got to his feet, and he chucked his stick into the crowd and said, "Fucking hell," and walked back up the track. I thought, what a man, and I never wanted to do anything else the rest of my life. I thought, now this is some fella, you know. Anyway, I rode with limited success, and I wound up having a terrible fall at Y and broke my back, and I was in hospital for over a year. And the jockey who chucked his stick into the crowd was called Tim Brookshaw. And when I arrived at Oswestry Orthopaedic, the first person to greet me in a wheelchair was Tim Brookshaw. And I said, "It's because of you that I'm here," because he was my hero. So that ended my riding career. And then I went to work for a fierce trainer in Newmarket called Jack Waugh. And he was tough and Victorian, and he did it very well. He had some very good owners, and he was absolutely rigidly a man of his word. What he said, that would happen. And I arrived for my first day with him in Newmarket, and I had to be there at 11 o'clock in the morning, And in the evening, we looked round evening stables, and it was absolutely immaculate. You could have eaten your food out of the horses' mangers. All the lads in white jackets. I mean, it was some sight to see. You can't see it now. And we came back in the house, and I had nowhere to stay. I'd only met him the day before at Newbury Races. I said, when would you like me to start? He said, tomorrow. So I drove back to Devon, loaded all my stuff, came back and started the next day. I got nowhere to stay. So he asked me in, and I thought, how nice, he's going to give me a cup of tea or a drink and see if I'm all right and how lucky I am. And he said, have you ever done entries, boy? So I said, a little bit when I was with Mr. Cundall. So he handed me the entry form, which for those that you don't know, is the next week's racing and all the conditions for the races. So there's 30 pages, there's 60 meetings, each has 6 races, and he had his own hieroglyphics for everyone. He handed me 6 sheets of paper and a pencil. He said, you'll soon work out my hieroglyphics. Put them on my desk, will you, tomorrow morning, 4 o'clock. Thank you. Good night. So off I went with 6 sheets of paper, a pencil, the previous week's entries, so I could then work out his hieroglyphics, and then the next week's entries. So I stopped at the pub at the foot of the road. They said, do you want anything to eat? I said, I haven't got time. Just go to the bedroom. And it took me till about 11:30 to work out what all the hieroglyphics are. I can do one for you now. 3 MNS CAT CG 2 times S. 3-year-old colts from geldings, maidens at starting, not run more than twice at closing. So there were all these confident. So I eventually, by 11:30, I think I've got it, you see. So I did it all in pencil, and I lined it out, and it looked marvellous. That took me to about 2. And then, in a moment of inspiration, I inked in all the horses' names in red, and all the race meetings in blue. Put it on his desk 4 o'clock in the morning. We rode out, absolutely marvellous, charming, told me everything he could. Went back into the office. My office is unchanged, it's the same now. He said, that's your desk, that's my desk, that's the secretary. Sat at my desk, absolutely polished. But unfortunately, in the middle of the desk, there was a little pile of shredded paper. And on close inspection, I could see red and blue baro. So I waited for a suitable moment, and I said to him, excuse me, sir, was there something you didn't like about the entry? And he said, I said, do them in pencil. Put them on my desk at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. Yeah. So that was day one. I remember ringing my parents and saying, this isn't going quite as well as I hoped. So, but once he'd established who was running the show, which was him, and not you, it was a marvellous place to work. And he became ill, and at the age of 21, I took over, and every single person who worked for me was older than me, so it was quite a task. And I inherited some wonderful owners, but it was towards the end of those type of owners. My principal owner was Lady Macdonald Buchanan, who was in her 80s, and she'd inherited an enormous fortune from the black and white whisky when her father, Lord Willabington, died, and she lived an expansive style, 6 home addresses. At one time, when they were hunting the Pytchley hounds, they had 50 hunters in at the same time, so that all the family could go on matching greys on Mondays, chestnuts on Thursdays, and bays on Saturdays. So I mean, it was some sort of empire, but it was gradually all coming to an end, and she was in her 80s. And it was very important in my first season that I had a winner for them as soon as possible. So you won't be surprised to hear we had a nice few winners, but none of theirs would win. None of theirs would win. And finally, in about May, a horse called Beretta won at Ayr, thank God. And you had to ring them at 7 o'clock in the evening. That was the time with the results. So at 7 o'clock in the evening, I'm driving back from Ayr, and I'm up on the top of those hills at Blackwater or Black Douglas or somewhere. You've got to stop the car, get out into a telephone box in those days and ring the number. Do you remember all that? Press button B and so on. So it's pouring with rain. Sir Reginald MacDonald Buchanan, her husband, is well into his 80s and rather deaf. And I ring through Cretan 232, that was the number. And a voice came to the phone and said, Cretan 232, which was the butler, who was older than the combined ages of Lady MB and Sir Reginald. Cretan 232. I said, can I speak to Lady MacDonald Buchanan, please? Beep, 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 more money going in. Can I speak to Lady MacDonald Buchanan? I'll see if her ladyship is in the morning room. I said, thank you. Beep, 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 more money. Her ladyship is not in the morning room. So I said, can you try somewhere else then? So Sir Reginald came to the phone. And they own half the stable. So Sir Reginald comes and says, hello, hello, who's that? So I said, Mark Prescott. Who? I said, Mark Prescott. Who? I said, I work for Jack Wall. Hello, Jack, how are you? I could feel I was losing ground. So I said, Beretta won at Ayr. Where? Ayr. Where? Ayr. Don't you talk to me like that, he said, and put the phone down. So I thought, well, that's it, you know, all the horses will be gone, you know, what can Ayr rhyme with? What can he possibly think I've said? So the next morning, 10 o'clock, I rang Lady MB, you see. I said, my lady, Beretta won at Ayr yesterday, you know, and so I told Sir Reginald, and he must have misheard me because he put the phone down and told me not to speak to him like that. Oh, she said, don't worry, Mark, I told him you couldn't say anything like that. So to this day, I've got no idea if any of you can think what Ayr rhymes with. I've got no idea, but they were marvellous people. And since then, of course, it's all changed very much. The number of horses has increased, the number of races has increased, public interest in it has fallen. I remember going to the Derby in '66 with Mr. Waugh's horse on Sidium, favourite for the Derby, and there were 750,000 people there, the largest spectator sport in the world. And sadly, you know, that's changing. Television, betting's changed completely. Starting stalls came in, passports came in, so horses, it was marvellous in the old days where half the people didn't know how the horses were bred anyway. So it's tightened up a lot. But you know, we've managed to keep, we've always stuck to 50 horses, we've never had more. And I got lucky, as Mr. O'Hagan was saying, in having this great horse Alpinista when I was 75. You know, you're very lucky to have been doing something for 57 years and trained the biggest winner in the world. And so she won, and that restored my street credibility a good bit. And I've got 13 trainers now training in all over the world who started with me as boys, and they all had 2 years with me. And then at the end of 2 years they have to go. And after Alpinista won the Arc, the week later the Jockey Club asked me to have 2 Japanese people round and show them round Newmarket, and 2 very important Japanese, one Japanese owner and fellow running Japanese racing. And so I took them up on the heath in my car, and halfway up the heath were 3 trainers who'd all started with me as boys. William Haggis, who's very, very successful, Simon Crisford, very, very successful trainer, and also Christian Wall, who was still training then and very successful. So these 3 who've all started with me, as I'm driving up the hill with my 2 Japanese, as I drive by, taking the mickey, they all sprang to attention and saluted, you see, as I went by. So the Japanese said, oh, who they? Who they? I said, riffraff. Riffraff, I mean, trainers you wouldn't be bothered with, riffraff. Oh, who they? I said, well, one's called Haggis, one, you know, not bothered, riffraff. So anyway, up the hill we went, and on the way back, they're still all there gossiping, you see. So I couldn't resist it. I drove very, very slowly by. wound the window down and said, "Take your fucking hands out your pockets when I drive by." So the Japanese, he's so impressed. So I said to those boys, I said, "I've just stitched you up with the Japanese nicely." So it improved my street cred a good bit. But when you get to the stage of being the oldest trainer in Newmarket, there's few compensations, but there's a very good young trainer called Mr. Botti, who's Italian. And he's come, and when he first arrived, his Italian was much better than his English. And in the spring of the year, my horses were all cantering up Warren Hill, and Mr. Botti's. And Mr. Botti came over and he said, "Oh, Sir Mark," he said, "how are your horses?" So I said, "No good, Mr. Botti, no good at the moment. They're coughing and nasty, dirty eyes, and coats look dull, no good at all at the moment. How are your horses?" And he said, "Oh, it is terrible, terrible." He said, "There is the sniffer, sniffer, there is the cougher, cougher, there is the ringer, wormer." So I said, "Oh dear, Mr. Botti." I said, "Well, there we are, it happens to everybody, just same for everybody, give them a bit of time and it's all right, same for everybody." He said, No, he said, it is very different for me to you." So I said, "Why is that?" "Same for everybody." He said, No, he said, "You so old, you soon be dead. I have many years." I said, "Thank you very much, Mr. Botti, thank you." So whenever I see him here, I say, I drive by and he's got smart owners. I say, "I'm still here, Mr. Botti, I'm still here." So my only claim to fame has been sticking at it for 57 years, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. But all of you, if you haven't been to Newmarket, you must come to Newmarket. I've never been here, I've never seen such a wonderful place, and what a privilege it is to come. And many of you won't have been to Newmarket and won't have had a good look and won't come with someone who can show you. And it is the most extraordinary place. King Charles cleared it in 1666. And when you look at that grass that the horses are cantering on, that grass was sown in 1666. It's the oldest sown sward in the world. There is nowhere else. And the strips are managed to such an extent that the way the horses canter on the grass today, it will have no horse on it for 2 years to the day. So it's used 1 day in 2 years. And that's been going on since the 1730s. So it is an extraordinary place. There's 2,500 horses. There's 81 trainers. So you imagine being a trainer there, it's like having 80 greengrocers in the same street. It's pretty competitive, you've got, we were lucky enough to have Marsha, who was sold for 6 million. You've got these extraordinarily valuable animals for whatever reason, pounding along up there, and it's just on your doorstep. So if you've not been, you must come. And thank you very much for letting me see this. Thank you.